Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello everyone, this is Muhammad Imran. In the previous lecture, we talked about context and shared knowledge in discourse. We also defined and highlighted the importance of context and shared knowledge in discourse analysis. In today's lecture, we will provide example of shared knowledge and then we will practice and discuss the tool through which we can identify and analyze any discourse. So the aim of this lecture is to discover shared knowledge and context in which communication takes place. So let's begin our lecture. A Yucatan example. Since shared culture knowledge, which is one aspect of the context, is so often taken for granted, let's look at the communication in what is a foreign culture to most of us. So this example is taken from a Yucatan culture. And a Yucatan is a Mexican city, so the culture for most of us is a foreign culture. And we don't have much information about this culture. Here we will not know what culture information speakers assume can go unsaid. My example is from William Hank's excellent book Language and Communication Practices 1996. So let's discuss what is the example from a Yucatan culture. So let's take example now. In a small town in Yucatan, Mexico, a Mayan shaman named Don Chebu. So Mayan shaman are the people of Yucatan, Mexico who are holding a particular culture. Don Chebu is sharing a meal with his daughter-in-law Margaret and a visiting anthropologist. So how many people are there? One is Don Chebu, who is the father-in-law of Margaret. And one is Margaret, who is the daughter-in-law of Don Chebu. And a third person is a visiting anthropologist. Where they are at Margaret's house. They are all in Margaret's house, a young man named Yom. So there's a young man, his name is Yom. Approaches from the outside, standing at the window, he asks, is Don Chebu seated? Margaret replies, go over there, he is drinking, go over there inside. Now we will see that what is she referring to when she's saying go over there, and why is she saying that he is drinking instead of he is taking dinner, and why is she saying go over there inside, right? Why not go over here? So let's discuss it. So the meaning of these utterances is not clear to culture outsider. If you do not belong to the culture of Margaret, or if you do not belong to Yucatan culture, so you may not understand the utterances uttered by Margaret, right? So in order to understand what is she referring to when she says that he is drinking, and when she says that he is over there, right? So in order to understand the meaning of drinking and the meaning of over there, you need to be the part of Yucatan culture. Now, a tremendous amount of cultural knowledge has been taken for granted as already known. So whenever we communicate someone, so we take for granted that our listener will understand whatever we say. For example, the people seated around the table are having a meal. So why does Margaret say that Don Chebu is drinking? That's a question. When they are having a meal, so why doesn't Margaret say that Don Chebu is taking meal? Instead, she said that he is drinking. So maybe that in the culture of Margaret or Mayan culture, when they take meal, so they refer to as drinking. So in order to understand that what does mean by drinking, you need to be the part of that culture. So if you're outsider, you may not understand the meaning of these utterances. So furthermore, Margaret's response implies that Don Chebu's drinking, despite the fact that he was at the moment gazing off into space with the roll in his hand. Even that time he was not eating. Neither he was drinking. but still she's saying that he is drinking. Why does she say so? And indeed, in Mayan, it would have been equally true here to say that Don Chebu was drinking had he been altogether done with eating his meal. If he has done his meal, then why is she saying that he is drinking? This is a question. Question number one. If he is taking meal, why does she say that he is drinking? And if he has done his meal, then why still say that he is drinking? So two questions are there. Number one, that he has finished with his meal. Then why is she saying that he is drinking? Second, if he is taking meal, then why is she saying that he is drinking? So two questions are there. We will explain these two questions in coming slide. Margaret's response implies as well that Don Chebu was seated. Yet, it turned out it would have been equally true to say he was seated had he been standing or even up somewhere else, even taking a bath in his own home. Or to take one final example, Margaret uses the Mayan word for there that means maximally distant from the speaker, the same word people in Yucatan use for relative who live outside. Now, Yucatan in other state in the Mexican Republic, she does this despite the fact that she is telling human to go into her father-in-law house not 10 meters away from hers within the same compound as her house. Now, when Margaret said that Don Chebu was seated, what does it mean? Does it mean that he was standing before this? Or does it mean that he was somewhere else and now he is seated? Because we take the meaning of seated formally when somebody is sitting, right? So what does mean by seated in Yucatan culture, right? Now, how can it be that people can be drinking when they are eating or doing nothing at all? For example, you are eating or you are doing nothing at all, or I say that you're drinking. How is it possible? Suppose you are eating and I say you're drinking, right? Or you are doing nothing at all and I say that you're drinking. How is it possible? This is question number one. Second, that they are seated when they are standing or taking a bath. Or when you take a bath or you stand and I say you're seated. How is it possible? So two questions are here. That they are far distant from something 10 meters away. Let's discuss these two or three questions. Things work this way because these Mayan in any case, though they almost always take food with drink. So when they take food, they also drink, and when they drink, they also take food. So this very much common in Mayan culture. So use the drink and eat in such a way that their morning and evening meal are drinking. So they call their morning and evening meal drinking. This is very much common in Mayan culture, right? And their larger main meal in the mid-afternoon eating. So mid-afternoon meal they call eating, while morning and evening meal they call drinking. So very much common because in morning time when they take food, so they also drink, and evening time when they drink, so they also take food. So very much common. That's why they call them drinking. While in afternoon time when they eat, so they call it eating. Now, furthermore, to these Mayan, as long as the social engagement of mealtime is still going on, regardless of whether the meal itself is finished or not, a person is still drinking or eating. For example, that your meal time is between, suppose that it is evening time and your meal time is between 7 to 8 p.m. Right? 7 to 8 p.m. So between 7, because you cannot eat for the whole hour, right? You start taking meal 6 o'clock and you finish, suppose, 6:20. But the time of the meal is between 6 and 7, so this all time they call it drinking. Even when they are not eating, still they call it drinking. Fine? This is okay what they say. Even when they finish, but still they call it drinking. Or not, a person is still drinking or not eating. Even when you are not drinking or eating, but it is meal time, so still they say that a person is drinking. Many Mayan live in a walled compound that contain several houses. They use the word seated to mean that one is at home. So when you say that, for example, that Ahmad is seated, so you mean that he is at home. By seated, we don't mean that whether he is standing or he is somewhere else. By seated, we mean that someone is at home, right, and available, regardless of where one is in the compound. So wherever you are in the compound, but still if somebody say that he's seated, it means you are at home. Now, being available has in addition a special meaning for shamans. To ask whether a shaman is at home is to ask whether he is available or engage in counseling. You can also call it, okay, that whether someone is available or not. Mayan have their own cultural view of how physical and social space work and are related, as we all do. Margaret is excluded from her father-in-law's house unless she has a specific reason to be there, for social reason having to do with Mayan culture views of social relationship and spaces within home. Thus, she uses the word far for distance due to social rather than physical distance. In this brief example, I have in fact given you very little of what you really need to understand fully these simple utterances. For example, why does Margaret rather than Don Chebu respond? Why doesn't Don Chebu respond himself? And instead of Don Chebu, his daughter-in-law Margaret responds. Now, to really understand them, one need to understand how social hierarchies, gender, meal, social engagement, shamanism, and great deal more work day to day or local setting among certain of the Mayan. For example, if you're sitting and one of your little brother is sitting, so who will respond? If somebody is asking for you, so instead of you, your daughter, your son, or your younger brother will respond rather than you because of social hierarchy. Or for example, if a husband and wife is sitting and someone is asking for your husband, so instead of the husband, the wife will respond because it is so social. It shows social status of the male and female in a social setup. Making the taken for granted new and strange. To do discourse analysis on our own language in our own culture require a special skill. We have to make things new and strange that we usually see as completely normal and natural. We can see the Mayan communication above as strange because it is brand new to us. Now, to do discourse analysis, we have to see what is old and taken for granted as if it were brand new. We will take it like something new. We need to see all the assumptions and information speakers leave unsaid and assume listeners know and will add in it to make the communication clear. Because most of the time the speaker will leave something like unsaid, and the speaker assumes that the listener will understand it. Communication and cultures are like iceberg. It's very important to know that how communication and culture interrelated. So they are like iceberg. Only a small tip is stated overtly, and a vast amount lies under the surface. Not said but assumed to be done or inferable from the context in which the communication is occurring or taking place. So, in simple words, we see that communication and culture are like iceberg. When you communicate, so you can see only one portion. Like iceberg, you can see only one portion of the iceberg, while the rest of is covered or is hidden under the water. The same is true also that when we communicate, so the culture is hidden and we don't know about this, we only know about the surface which is visible to us. So in order to understand communication effectively and communication as a whole, you need to understand the context and also the culture. By making what is natural to us, what we usually take for granted, new and strange, we can begin consciously to think about all the knowledge, assumptions, and inferences we bring to any communication. And sometimes we will even see aspect of our own taken for granted culture, knowledge, and assumptions, or those of other that we want to question because we conclude that they are doing harm to ourselves or other in terms of things like equity, fairness, and human treatment of people. What we do in communication with each other is not always benign. Indeed, this is one of the purpose of doing discourse analysis.